PennsPeakRadio.com.
Penn's Peak Radio, as we roll through the bump and grind, and here, this is great pleasure for me since I have grown up with a lot of this music. This guy behind the scenes, and just a lot of great stuff that this guy has produced, but also been on stage many times as well. The incredible Jim Messina on board, and how are you?
Well, I'm actually pretty good. For a guy who's going to be 65 here pretty soon,
wow.
I'm lucky. I've got a 6-year-old daughter who just keeps me young and moving, and great wife. And the good news is I get to do my music and have I kind of started late with the family thing. I didn't think I'd have room for it in my 20s, and I didn't. And as it turned out, it was a pretty long 10 years there from 1967 to 1977 with Buffalo Springfield Poker.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to lead into. And first of all, let me congratulate you for being a little more daring than I am at your age and a 6-year-old. I mean, look, man, I have one going through criminal justice already at 22, and I have one that's 5. Now, I'm a few years younger than you are, but that's where I am. I'm at 22 and 5, but Jim, there you are. Congratulations. You know what? There's no better feeling, though. It's so awesome.
It truly is. I was telling my wife last night, I have to stay up till at least midnight at nights because then I can be up at 8. Otherwise, I can't get any work done. If I go to bed too early, then I'll wake up too early. So, but my little one, she goes to bed about, maybe 7:30, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was in there watching a cowboy last night, and she walks in and she goes, "Daddy, I'm going to go to bed. Can little folks watch this kind of stuff?"
Yeah, I know.
I said, "Yeah, this is a good one. This cowboy's okay."
Yeah,
those people.
Here's something. And now here I'm talking to the incomparable Jim Messina on my show, and I mean it. I'll tell you what, this guy is talented more than you even know. Not maybe some not always like on stage all the time, which he has been for many years, but also behind the scenes, knowledge vast. But since we're talking about our kids here, one quick second. It wasn't too long ago. I was flipping channels, and I like to watch the crazy reality shows like America's Got Talent, and there we are. There I am flipping the channels, and my 5-year-old son, Blake, is there watching it with me, and here comes this really heavy lady. Now, I've seen a lot of women perform some crazy maneuvers, even though they were big. I've also seen bikini model ladies that are, wow, they're even just as good, if not better. But here this lady, she was really big, she was heavy, and she was a pole dancer. And my son said, "What is she doing?" I said, "She's a pole dancer." He goes, said to his mother, he said, "Mom, were you ever a pole dancer?" I'm going, "Yes, there you go." It's like, how did Blake, when you get older, that's how I met your mother. No, I'm only kidding. Jim,
kids are absolutely wonderful.
They are.
When she was 4 years old, her and her mother, she's very lively, and she's really, unfortunately, really smart. And they were doing something, I could hear them in the bathroom getting ready to do something, and there's an argument that starts to happen, and I go, this is where I tune out. I'm not going to get involved in that stuff. This is girl stuff. And all of a sudden I hear this little voice saying, "You fool!" And I went, "What?" And I walked in there, and there's Mom with her mouth dropped open, has no response, no defense to that. Of course, that's where Dad has to come over and say, "Okay, come with me."
Yeah, exactly. I know. I've been there, done that. Jim Messina, boy, as you mentioned a little bit right there in the beginning, gosh, what a career it has been. I guess, I don't know, the one I guess most would remember here when it all started, I guess I could say Buffalo Springfield, when you served as recording engineer, producer, musician, replacing, I think, Bruce Palmer. Yeah, Bruce Palmer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was a great time in my life. I know for me, I was like, I think I was about 19 years old when I kind of stepped into that.
Wow.
Because I had started in 1965 coming to Hollywood, apprenticing under Mike Duro, who became a a very famous. You've probably seen his name in the stations because he built all of the compressors and stuff that go in line to leveling amplifiers and stuff. But I apprenticed under him, and then at one point in time, working as a recording engineer at Sunset Sound, David Crosby came in.
Wow!
And I didn't know who that was. Who was I? I was just a skinny little Italian living in Colton, California, trying to play in a band. And I asked Gypsy, the lady, I said, "Who's David Crosby?" I said, "Is that Bing Crosby's son?" And she goes, "No, it's not." So David came in, and I met him, and he had some young lady working with him. He was producing, and she was phenomenal. I mean, I just have never really heard anybody sing like this and play the guitar like this. It was just so unusual. In fact, I was infatuated with this lady. And so when we got done, I said, "Who's the producer on this?" He says, "Put David Crosby down there." And I said, "And who would be the artist?" And he says, "Well, that's Joni Mitchell." And at that point in time, I was cutting her demos before she started, with A&M. And that was the one time in my life I really realized that when people are really, really talented, it doesn't matter whether they're on the television or Dancing with the Stars or Teen Idol. It just happens. And she was one of those talents that I was fortunate enough as an engineer to have the opportunity to put on tape and watch the magic before everybody else did. That was one of the things as an engineer I really, really enjoyed.
That's where I'll tell you. But you're a talent yourself. I think it's hard for the average person to really understand. Let's take a Joni Mitchell and David Crosby just for a second. Then we'll talk a little bit of how when Buffalo Springfield broke up, you formed Poco. But I think it's really hard for an average person, even if it's somebody who loves music, is out seeing different concerts, different people, let's say like a Joni Mitchell, let's say like a David Crosby, let's say like a Jim Messina, to really understand how talented, how far out there these people really are in what they do.
Or how far in there they really are. I mean, for myself, I never anticipated I'd ever have the opportunity to be on stage again after high school and having bands since I was 13. When I moved to Hollywood, I just thought there's just too many talented people here. I'm never gonna be like any of these people. So that's one of the reasons why I got into engineering. But being on the inside and watching it happen from the other side of the glass and watching the effort and the work, or the lack of work, or the lack of respect for themselves, too many drugs, or those who just work night and day to make it happen. And for some, it comes easier than others, and for others, it has to be a way of life in order for it to work at all. But I really got a chance, and I to be a laborer, to be in servitude and getting paid to do what I love to do. That when the opportunity did come, and I was asked to produce the Buffalo Springfield. Fortunately, I'd had enough of those Joni Mitchell experiences, or Lee Michael experiences, or whoever came into the studio to record, even if it was a mariachi band that couldn't speak English.
Sure.
It
right.
all served to feed that thirst I had to understand and to have knowledge and to eventually gain the experience. So that when I did, do things in Loggins and Messina, some of the music we did, believe it or not, had a very mariachi effect, or sound on certain songs, because I had a chance to know how those chords worked and the changes were. But I'm just so grateful for all of the experiences that I've had, and even to this day, I still continue to have a studio and I still continue to mix and record. And of course, in the days when I first started, there was only 3-track was the biggest multi-track machine, a left and a right and a center, which was used to put a voice on. And from the time of I think that was probably 1965 to 1967. My goodness, we went to 8-track machines and multi-track. So it was a lot of learning real quick.
You got in there and formed Poco, as we mentioned, after Buffalo Springfield broke up, playing lead and supplying vocals and, making that work. 2 studio albums, 1 live album, and then from Poco into Loggins and Messina. Like, how did that all mesh? I mean, even I know, in reading some of the bios and just knowing enough about you after doing this as long as I'm doing it as well. I know you've met the best of the best. Everybody from like you said, from David Crosby all the way up to Clive Davis.
That's right.
I mean, you've been with them all, but from Poco, Loggins, Messina, Clive Davis, Columbia Records. I mean, it all certainly all came together, kind of crazy.
Well, it was, and it was again a lot of work. I've never viewed myself as a what people call a rock and roll star. I don't feel comfortable with that title. I look at myself as a craftsman, as an artist, and I like performing. I enjoy, touring and singing and writing and producing and all that stuff. But I also enjoy the private side of what life has to offer. And for me, to live a normal life around normal people, to me is part of the blessing. It gives me the balance to be able then to go out and live in a very crazy, world. And for me, I enjoy that crazy world, but I like to make sense out of it. I like to organize it. I like the harmony, not the chaos. I like the hope, not the despair. For me, Stephen Stills used to call me Mr. Straight Ahead. No kidding. Because I was always there early and set up and everything, and then when they were done, they were gone. I'd pack up, and I just have enjoyed the process of what success can bring. And I've also learned to respect what faith has to offer as well. So it's amazing. I mean, I can certainly, and this is a great different side of things with our interview with Jim Messina, and pretty crazy. He's going to be here in July, right here at Penn, July 20th, I believe. And boy, what a great show it's going to be. But it's nice to hear that from your point of view, who you've got to deal with, play with, engineer for, produce for the best of the best coming up through the ranks, but yet having that normal side, because there are 2 sides of everything most of the time, and I think over the years, maybe 4.
Yeah, really, and meeting some of the people that I've got to meet and I've got to hang out with over the years. It's sometimes I look at it in this business. I can look at it and say, "Wow!" I mean, what I really wanted, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like I look at it going, "Whew, I need what you need." I can come on my radio show and I can play and I can be maybe somebody that I'm not for a little while. Because honestly, I tell people all the time when I'm doing my radio show, they'll see me in and around the streets, and I'm happy to be where I am right now at this point in my career. And they look at it. There's 2 sides. In other words, there's 2 sides. I like what you said, because what I do here is something totally different than what I do at home.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you make that comment, because I was fortunate in the early part of my life in my first marriage, because my father-in-law was a very famous actor named Barry Sullivan, and Barry Sullivan had worked, back in the 40s. Was a second to some of the greats, the Betty Davises, Gables, and all that stuff. He was in that league. And I remember one time I asked him, after we were married, I asked him, he was a kind of man. It was kind of difficult to talk to, only because he had such a presence to him that I didn't want to say something stupid, So one day I asked him, I said, do you ever go back and look at your old movies to kind of get a feel for what you did and maybe learn from that? And he looked at me and he says, "Why would I?" And of course, that was like, all right, I'd said something stupid, right? And I said, I'm not sure I understand. I said, I go back and I listen to my arrangements and I see if there's something, a better chord or something I could have done, or maybe when I go to perform it, I'll, do it differently. And he says, well, he said, I look at my work as a craft. And he says, I'm also a carpenter. He said, I would never go back and ask somebody that I built, a cabinet for if I could take a look at it. I just want to see, where I might have screwed up or where I could have done it better. Mm-hmm. He says, you have to go on, you do your best, you come prepared, and you let it go. Mm-hmm. And I hear that, and I also realize he was one of these people who had a character. Every time he did his job, he was a different person. Mm-hmm. For me, I found that I appreciated that advice, especially about the craftsman part of it, because I do feel that for myself. But when I go on stage, I'm myself. I'm nobody else. I'm not trying to be anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's the difficult thing, is to remain true to who I am when I'm performing as to who I am when I'm off stage. Mm-hmm. Because that's where, for me, I've learned that's where the sanity is. And to be able to walk both of those lines, respect the difference between the glass in the studio and the glass in the control room, the edge of the stage where the audience begins, the edge of the stage where I began, to do what it is they've come to see, has been the real challenge in my life. And I think that's why that I can live in the community and I can enjoy people who are carpenters and people who are plumbers and people who raise horses or rapes and be in awe at what they do as well.
Yep, no, I agree. That's what I say. I mean, I'm a knucklehead. People that come out to the farm out to my house, they say, "Wow, you're a knucklehead. This is no wonder you're a whack job on radio." I said, "Look at the wife I live with." I said, "She's a knucklehead too, and I love her to death. A great mom." I said, "Where the hell do you think I get my bits?" It's like, I don't eat too much junk food at all. I shouldn't. I mean, every once in a while I'll grab for a can of SpaghettiOs. What the hell? The other day I got in trouble. She goes, "You know what? Blake was looking for those SpaghettiOs. Where are they?" I said, "Well, I ate them." And she said, "Well, what the hell are you doing eating the SpaghettiOs?" I said, "Who wanted them?" She said, "Your son." I said, "Next time, put a note on it." Right there is a bit on the radio. I act the same way at home as I do right here on the show.
I love it. There you go. Okay.
That's what I do. Listen,
you understand.
I do understand. I mean, I separate the two, which I have to a little bit, but I am who I am. I have fun, and you know what? It's a short ride, and if I can't have fun every day when I get up, you know what? Then I don't want to get up. I mean, that is just me. I try to do the best I can. I try to just have a little fun along the way. Every once in a while with a radio bit, I pick on people, but it's not in a bad way that I pick on people or embarrass anybody. I just feel that really heavy people, if they are fat, they just shouldn't wear spandex. That's all I say. I mean, because I'm not going to be in GQ magazine anytime soon, but I know enough that I'm not going to wear spandex. So if you're heavy, don't wear spandex. That's all I'm saying. That's my word.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that I've been doing lately is I like to learn, and ever since I started out as a musician but also as an engineer, I continue that craft. But lately, one of the things I've been doing and working with is in video. And in fact, when you caught me here, I'm working on an album cover for a DVD that we're getting ready to release, and hopefully I'll have it by the time I get there.
Great.
It's mixed and done. It's just a question of getting the artwork finished and pressed. But I decided to put together a show that kind of describes what you talked about when we first started out. And over the years, I've recorded, as you know, with Springfield, Poco, and Buffalo Springfield. So I've kind of gone through the point where somebody said to me, you could talk more on stage. And I said, yeah, but I'm there to play. I'm not a comedian. They said, no, you ought to let people at least get a sense of, who you are. So I thought about that, and I said, well, that's probably got to do with my music. And so I looked at a chronology of how it's all come together. So I've added, and you'll see this when we do the show, is that I've added some songs from Buffalo Springfield. I added a song, believe it or not, that I didn't do very well. It was my first song in the Buffalo Springfield. I was sort of coached to do this because I wrote the song for Dewey Martin to sing, but Dewey kind of enjoyed. He was a very spiritual kind of guy in many ways. He meaning that he enjoyed the spirits, alcoholic spirits, and he ended up showing up drunk to the session that we did at Atlantic Studios, and when he went to sing the song, he could barely stand up. And of course, Richie was just, blown away that he would do something that while we were working, and I was really disappointed because I wrote this song, and I was wanted to get it on the Buffalo Springfield album, and so Richie said, "Well, you sing it." And I said, "Well, I'm not really a singer." He said, "I'm a singer-songwriter, but I'm not a singer." But he kept pushing me, and finally I said, "Well, if it's going to get on there, I'm going to have to do it." So I did it, and we put it on there, and oddly enough, Arif Bardeen and both Ahmet Ertegun thought it was a great song, and the moment they said that, everybody in the band looked at me like, "Grr." And at that moment I realized, well, that song ain't going anywhere. But over the years, I kind of blew it off, and so about 4 years ago, I rearranged it, and I put lyrics to it in the bridge, which there never really was, or instrumental, and I added some parts, and now I do it in my set, but I do it sort of in 1930s, which is the kind of feel that it was written. It's a song called "Carefree Country Day," and I brought in violin, kind of a Stephen Grappelli kind of feel to it, and then there's clarinet, which is a very unusual instrument to find. But when you add that with a string bass and clarinet and violin with a very 30s approach, suddenly it came to have a new life to it, and probably the life I would have wanted to have, back in the late 60s when I first did it. So I do that song, and then I do another song that was Richie and I in that same session. We did "Kind Woman," and "Kind Woman's" always been a great song in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so I do that as a tribute to Richie. And then "Child's Claim to Fame," which was another song that we actually did in Springfield, but we also brought it to Poco, and we performed it with Poco. So I do that song as having produced and performed on him, and then move into "You Better Think Twice" with Poco, and then I start moving into the L&M stuff, and we move through the set. But I think it gives the audience a chance to pretty much get a sense of who I am, what I've done, what music I've been a part of.
I like the way it's going to be, and that's a question I was going to ask you as far as what can people expect in July. Jim Messina, incomparable Jim Messina, going to be right here at Penn's Peak, July 20th, and that was going to be my question as far as what can people expect you there on stage, and you gave us a dose of it.
I'm going to open up acoustically because I think it gives everybody a chance to sit down and relax and hear the music and hear the harmonies. I'm not there to beat their eardrums to death because that's never been fun for me. And but I want it to be exciting. But I also want people to hear what we're doing. There's a lot of 3-part harmony, violin.
That's great.
Acoustic guitars for the first part, and then I move into more of the country section, a country rock session that, of course, Richie and I started back in the 60s, and I do, as I said, "Kind Woman," "Child's Claim to Fame." We do "You Better Think Twice." I'm also doing some country music that I did in Loggins, Messina, "Listen to a Country Song" and "Holiday Hotel." And then about there, I actually turn the page and I start moving into more of the stuff that some of the stuff I've been doing recently, which is more, I don't know how you call it, probably more country blues, where I got a tune called "Blacktop Cowgirl." I wrote it about a biker chick, because nobody writes songs about biker chicks. They're sort of the ones always sitting on the back that get no recognition. So
I don't know. Every chick I had in the back of my Harley, man, she always got plenty of recognition. That's all I know.
But not going down the road.
Well, the way they looked, there was a dress code when they rode on the back of my Harley, so they always got recognition, especially by the people that we'd pass on the highway. Listen, a couple of things and this has been an absolutely incredible. Wow, incredible interview. Just a little bit behind the scenes with Jim Messina, who has, guys, I'm telling you, You can read up on him. You know about him. You know the name. Read up on him and see what talent lies here and what he's done for the music scene, both on stage, but a hell of a lot behind the stage and behind the scenes. But let's talk about Kenneth Clark Kenny Loggins here for a second as well. I mean, when this whole came into play then, after Buffalo Springfield, after Poco, and then the Loggins Messina deal that came through, you first came, when you first saw him, you've already, trudged the road and said, this guy's going to need a little bit of help. He's going to need some management. He's going to need some help here. And that's how it all started. I mean, you did this, as you mentioned earlier in the interview, as coming about and as a helpful, straightforward kind of guy. Look, you need some help and some management here.
Having come from the other side of the glass as an engineer and of course as a producer for Springfield, because I was mainly on that side of the glass. Even as a musician, I was a bass player, who was the last bass player, I should say. But, one of the things that I learned is that being in Springfield and Poco, if you don't have the right management, if you don't have the right agency, mm-hmm. and most importantly, if you don't have the right attorney, you're gonna walk down a very jagged path. And mm-hmm. so I had just left Poco, signed a deal with CBS through Clive Davis to become an independent producer working for them, mm-hmm. Giving them, I think I had signed a 6-album deal, something like that. And
wow.
Andy Williams was my first artist that they gave to me, and I said, you know what, I love Andy Williams. Wow. I've never heard a better voice, but I am not the right person for him. I mean, I can't do him any justice. And then Dan Fogelberg came into the scenes.
Wow.
And about the same time that I met Kenny, and Dan had come up and said, listen, I'd like to have you produce me. So we talked for a little bit, and I asked him, well, why me? Why would you choose me? And he says, well, because I love Poco, and I want to make a Poco album. And right there was all he had to say.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? I've been there, done that. And I have to tell you, it was not a pleasant road as far as finances. I said I made $125 a week and worked really hard with everybody else. And I said, I don't want to do that.
Wow.
And I said, I apologize. I said, you're a great talent, but I just cannot make that another Poco record. And that's when, when Loggins, at that point in time, I heard his stuff. But I loved Loggins because he had the ability to take his voice and throw it in ways that other artists just didn't. And it was because he had a genuine love for music. And he liked the fact that he could imitate other people. I mean, he had a job working for $100 a week in those days at ABC Dunhill because they needed a Leon Russell song. He could sing like Leon Russell. If they needed an Elton John song, he could sing like Elton John. He knew how to change that epiglottal in his voice to be able to do it, and it tickled him to death. And so therefore, inside of all of that was this really talented vocalist, but also enjoyed what he was doing. And when I first got his stuff, most of it was just folk music. And there really wasn't an album of rock and roll there. And that's where the work began. I needed to go through his songs like Vahivala, and turn them into something. That's when I brought in Tommy Reynolds, who I think they had a band called Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it rings a bell to me.
He was from Jamaica, and he made his own steel drums. And I asked Tommy to come in and make these drums for us and teach the musicians, John Clark and Al Garth, how to play them. And at that time, we had Michael Marty on keyboards, who was a musical genius. And I gave him the lead pan. I said, do you think you can figure this out? And he said, oh, I think I can. And he messed with it for a couple of weeks, and finally he could actually was pretty proficient on it, blew our minds. But in the process of trying to figure out what to do with Loggins was also the thing, what to do with his music and what could be added to give him some strength and take that voice, which I knew could had some power to it, and give him give him some songs, some of mine, some of his rearranging. And we arranged House at Pooh Corner to be more classically oriented, going along the lines of what the English were doing at that time, like with Sweet Lady Jane. I love the ambient of that tune, and Kenny had this song called House at Pooh Corner, which had been recorded by the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, but it was like an up-tempo kind of song, which I never could figure out how they got there with that. But giving Kenny, taking him as a folk artist, but giving him not only the folk artist part of it, but even making that more than it was, and then bringing him into some country music, which he had the voice to be able to do, and then to do songs like Peace of Mind, which was more blues, gave him an appeal, in my opinion, as a producer, that would allow him to compete in a market that was already changing. I mean, we were leaving the country rock generation already. Folk rock was gone. What was next? And the question is, I thought we needed to be diversified, or he needed to be diversified in our music in order to make that next step. And I think it took me a year. I was talking to the road manager who worked for us during that time, Jim Messina, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it took us a year. And part of that year was not just the music, but it was trying to find a manager, trying to find an agency, making sure that he had representation, and that it was, separately and independent of me, because it was about making Kenny a successful solo artist. And it's about perseverance, and it's about not, you don't know that things are going to work or they're not going to work, and generally they don't. But with enough hard work, and by putting together a great team of people, everybody has their job. And when everybody does their job, and we're all going in the same direction, there's a good chance that it's going to be successful. And I think that that's exactly what happened. It was a lot of effort from a lot of people, a vision that I saw would work, and thank God that Clive Davis saw it. Because if Clive had never been on board, or whether it was Clive Davis or anybody else that was the president of a record label, if he had not wanted to see this happen and help by doing what they do, which is market and distribute, it wouldn't have happened. So it was really a major team effort.
Yeah, that's awesome, and to be there through it all has been such a great career, and a little bit of insight. First of all, a great interview, if you will, talking a little bit and getting a little bit of feel on Jim Messina, who has, as he said and mentioned, both sides of the glass as producer and musician. What a great ride, and still at it. So Jim Messina will be here Friday, July 20th, and what a step back in time that we're all going to be able to take, in a ride that it's going to be right here at Penn's Peak.
I guess I'm going to end the evening probably with songs that people know, like Angry Eyes, Man. I sneak Your Mama Don't Dance in there, although I hate to play the damn song. I've had to change it around a little bit to make it a little bit more fun to do, but we've gotten it to where it's a lot of fun.
I guess. Hey, play that one, Jim. Can you play Your Mama Don't? It's like, yeah. Let me get Bret Michaels and the guys from Poison in here. They did it too. They did a remake on it. Let me have them do it for a change. Too funny. Yeah. I'll tell you what. But that was, you got to admit, that was a fun song. What a great song.
Well, it was a fun song, and it's one of those songs that I wrote in humor, never expecting that it would do anything but just be a closer, and it ended up being a hit.
Yeah, right.
So,
absolutely, a stellar career, and how fun it's going to be. The all-consuming Jim Messina, and it's going to be Friday, July 20th, right here at Penn's Peak. Jim, thank you for everything.
You're very welcome. I hope you get a chance to come down to the show. You say you have a 5-year-old?
I do. I think that date might work. I have some vacation time. They want to get me out of the studio here for a little bit. They tell me I work too much, so I might have a vacation time here or there. I don't know. I know it's going to be somewhere the second or third week, I think, of July, wherever
I was thinking of bringing my usually I bring my family. We have a bus and we usually go. But since I'm only going to be there for 4 days in that area, we're going to probably leave. They'll probably stay home and pick up California dates when we do the California. But I was going to just realize I thought maybe my daughter was going to come and.
A pleasure, and gosh, Friday, July 20th, Jim Messina right here at Penn's Peak. And Jim, thank you very much for taking a lot of great time and bringing back some memories. Hamilton, Joe, Frank, and Reynolds. Boy, I used to play that at a radio station a long time ago when that was almost a hit. Yeah, it was a hit, but it wasn't a hit when I was playing it. But
go looking for a song that Tommy wrote that was a regional hit. The cool song. It's called Day After Day. And it goes, day after day, more people come to L.A. Something, you better get ready. The whole place is shaking away. He was actually writing about the earthquake.
Oh, really? Wow. The inspiration that you songwriters get, it's crazy. It's crazy. So here's an idea for you. Here's a line you might be able to use in a song somewhere. This is what my whole life is about. And I said this on the interview earlier. If you can't have fun, don't get up. That seems like that could be in a song somewhere.
Well, if you can't get up, you won't have any fun.
Well, that's exactly right. So I don't know if you can put a spin on that, Jim, but I don't need any rights to it at all. All I need is just I don't know, like just hey, the doctor from Penn Speak Radio. That's where I got it from. That's all I need. I don't need anything else.
PennsPeakRadio.com